Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Anna Kalczyńska. French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni vowed to work jointly for a stronger Europe as they met on Tuesday following bilateral tensions over Ukraine, trade and relations with the United States. With conflicting goals, fears of immigration, a populist surge and undecisiveness, is Europe entering a period of heightened uncertainty? To discuss this matter, we are joined by Kolesnyk, a French political consultant and analyst. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being with us here.
Hello.
So, the recent meeting between Giorgia Meloni and Emmanuel Macron suggest a realignment of power within the European Union?
First of all, we have to understand, I guess, that Emmanuel Macron is a representative of the centrist and globalist forces in Europe, while Giorgia Meloni is representative of right conservative ideologies. And for instance, we observe, in the Eastern Europe, we have as well Hungary, Slovakia. We also have right now in Poland the new president, Kolesnyk, who is also representative of the conservative part of the world. And in the United States, we also have Donald Trump. So at the same time, we should say that this meeting between Emmanuel Macron and Giorgia Meloni took place to diffuse a certain amount of grievances, I would say. From the Italian part, one of the grievances was that Giorgia Meloni was not invited actually to this PR visit of three European Union leaders to Kiev in May, while Italy remains a strong supporter of Ukraine's territorial integrity and support to Ukraine in its war against Russia. While at the same time, Emmanuel Macron, I guess, has, would love to benefit from Meloni's ties to Donald Trump, for example, with regard to the current difficult situation regarding the United States wanting to impose the tariffs on the European Union. And there is another issue which wasn't actually on the official text after this meeting, but we know that during a few past years, France has lost its positions in Africa, while Italy, on the contrary, not only preserved its positions with the African countries, but also increased its cooperation with a number of African countries, including Algeria, while France has very difficult relations with this country recently.
That is true. We also seen consequent two visits by first Meloni, then by Macron in Asia as well. And but coming back to Ukraine, you just rightly mentioned that Giorgia Meloni was not invited to Kiev, and she was hardly criticized domestically for that matter. So Italy remains skeptical about French-led initiatives such as Coalition of the Willing, and Italy is reticent when it comes to sending troops to Ukraine. But is this a sign that Macron has become increasingly isolated on that matter, military forward posture, or does he still carry significant influence among EU and NATO allies?
I wouldn't say that Macron is becoming isolated because, first of all, France has one of the most capable armed forces in Europe, and it's the sole actually nuclear power on the European continent. I mean, within the European Union, I would say. At the same time, there is also the United Kingdom that supports this coalition of the willing. There is Portugal, for example, as well. There is Greece. So there are a few countries who support this. But yet again, we are not talking about sending troops to Ukraine, even potentially now, but only in this somehow post-conflict scenario. While Giorgia Meloni's approach was a bit different, but I would say maybe even smarter, it was to extend the Article 5 guarantees to Ukraine, even without Ukraine joining join NATO. And I guess it was actually what Ukrainians were asking the Western colleagues. It was to extend the Article 5, but it didn't receive much of traction, while this coalition of the willing was much more let's say, popular recently.
So I understand a bilateral summit is scheduled for as early as beginning of 2026. So what does it exactly tell us about the outcomes of this visit? How credible is this show of unity, and what are the main drivers behind the renewed cooperation on European competitiveness and strategic autonomy?
First of all, we have to understand that Italy is second largest trade partner in terms of French exports, and the third largest partner in terms of imports. And France is more or less the same for Italy. So the two countries share a lot with regard to trade. The bilateral trade is almost 100 billion of euros. And different grievances also on the economic sphere have been accumulated, but at the same time, new opportunities have been opened as well, especially with regard to cooperation in the defense and security industry, not only within the European Union initiatives, but also on the bilateral track. Another issue is to show that the European Union is united, and one of the Giorgia Meloni's actually actions is to and the will is to show that the European Union is united no matter what with regard to the Russian threat. And I guess it will be one of the key issues as well to the bilateral discussions that are scheduled, I guess, for April next year, if I'm not mistaken. And another issue is migration, because we remember that, for example, Giorgia Meloni has been highly criticizing Emmanuel Macron a few months ago regarding the French African policies and, for example, the franc CFA. And some time ago, Italy also redirected a boat with migrants to France. And we know that France has introduced the border controls on the French-Italy border. So I mean, the issue of migration is quite an issue, I guess, for both states, and I guess it will be also top on the agenda.
So rivals, but united by the need of unity. Emmanuel Macron has championed the idea of EU strategic independence, while Meloni leans towards strong alignment with the United States. How do these differing divisions affect France's ability to shape consensus within the EU, particularly ahead of the European Council and NATO summits?
At the one hand, the idea of this whole European Union defense and even European Union army, as some are saying, is a quite good idea, especially given that the politics in the United States may influence the United States foreign policy regarding the European Union, and it is exactly what we are observing currently under Donald Trump. But at the same time, how can we potentially implement this kind of approach? I mean, it's good to give to make the declarations and statements saying, yes, we want the European Union defense and we want the European Union army, but practically how we will be able to implement this. And on the other hand, we have the countries like, for example, Italy, who has a slightly different approach, more approach of a cooperation. And I guess a lot of things, yet again, should be checked and discussed between France and Italy, because, as I have already said, Italy remains one of the main partners for France, and France, at the same time, one of the key partners for Italy. As for the migration issues, we also actually have observed the certain changes in France, especially with the Minister of Internal Affairs, Retailleau, who has been taking a more proactive and more hawkish, I would say, stance on the immigration crisis. But at the same time, Italy remains more, I would say, rather a smarter maybe player, especially given how Italy treated with Libya with regard to the deal on migrants and to preventing actually them coming to Italy. So I guess a lot of things on the agenda. But we have also 1 year before this meeting, so a lot of things may change, not only in Italy, not only in Europe, but also in France.
That is true. We're just about to be fortune tellers here. But also at the latest stage of Macron's presidency, what's the future ahead of Emmanuel Macron, and what can happen next in France in terms of his successor? Who could replace Macron?
It is quite difficult to say at this time because the next presidential election will take place in 2027. But it is sure that it is the last Macron's term, because in France he has the right only to get elected twice, and it is his second term. We also observed that we have more demand on the conservative ideology and even far-right, extreme-right ideologies. And in order to diffuse the rise of the far-right ideologies in France, it is important to reinstate, let's say, or even re-establish the conservative party. And one of the conservative parties is Les Républicains. And it is important to give to the electors the possibility to vote for the conservative parties, but who are not extreme right. And I guess during these 2 years before the elections, it's something that we will be observing. And even if we look at the French government right now, we have, yet again, I will repeat myself, but we have Minister of the Interior, Retailleau, who is a representative of the Les Républicains, and who has quite a conservative agenda regarding security issues, regarding migration issues. And that's exactly what the French society wants to see, because we've been hearing a lot of statements during the past almost 10 years on how we have to address the security issues and migration, but those issues were not really addressed.
Thank you so much, Denis Kolesnyk, French political consultant and analyst, for being with us here in TVP World Talks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good day. And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned to TVP World for more news and commentaries.